could you tell at all during watching, and Eric, you too, about who was using it and who wasn't using it? Could you tell certain engagements that were happening that you could see a player was using it and it was winning him certain engagements and that was leading to winning rounds? And do you feel like that at all was important to what led to the decision from Valve? Or was Valve going to do this no matter what happened at Cologne, and it was just based off the discourse that has been happening the last couple of weeks?
Not to speak for Valve, but I would assume, in my mind, they were going to do this regardless. I don't think Cologne had any impact on it. And to answer your question, I couldn't tell while I was casting with the way people were playing if they were using it or not. But I'm also not entirely focused on like those individual mechanical jiggle peeking. I'm looking a lot at the mini map. I'm looking a lot at my co-caster. I'm looking a lot at the guy rotating over, what utility people have. I think it'd be probably pretty hard to spot whether someone's actually using it or not. Leash put out that tweet that was just kind of like, he said something along the lines of SnapTap wasn't that huge of like an increase in like how much it helped you. And I find it really easy to believe that kind of a statement, because you're talking about the 1% of the top 1% of players. Like, they're going to be really good at jiggle peaks. It might help them out, I don't know, once or twice in a map, but I think their jiggle peeking and their strafing and counter strafing is going to be pretty on point most of the time. I think it probably raised the floor for like the average player and helped the average player a lot. But I think the pros, I don't think it was the biggest deal in the world. Vitality won the event, and they got no one on this list.
I know. That was great. I think that was fantastic. That the winner of the event was not no player.
So the Valve answer, I think Moses is absolutely right. I don't think Valve doesn't really operate that way.
Yeah.
I don't. They just don't really work that way. I'm not going to speak for them, but they're not known for moving fast. Slasher. Let's be honest. They didn't see Cologne and they didn't go, all right, let's run it. This was in the pipeline. And that's evidence from their first, when they implemented how to track SnapTap, right? Like they did that before Cologne. Or I don't know if it was maybe during. Point is, it was definitely before playoffs where they were tracking all that stuff.
I think it was right after Dallas, wasn't it? I think there was I think Dallas is when most teams tested it.
Yeah, it was just a smaller, update where they threw it in there, and then, I think as soon as they did that, they had already kind of made up their mind. I think that was probably when they made their decision. When it comes to watching the games, as somebody that doesn't have to do what Moses does, because I just get to listen to him and then yap and then pay attention to the things that I really want to focus on while he tells the story, right? Like, I very rarely feel like I was like, for sure that's a SnapTap moment. But what I will say is there are certain players that were known to be using it beforehand, and just in general, there'd be certain moments that like happened. And this is exactly why I'm so glad it's done, gone. I even said it, like, watching, it's like, you just don't know, right? Like, it's like, I'm aware, like, they hit this shot, but like, was that really them? Like, did they get into a little bit of assistance right there? Like, there was a moment where I said it, and I don't even know if this was a SnapTap thing or if he was fully running, but there was like a shot that JL hit, for example, on Nuke and Hut in a big clutch. I think it was JL. I'm pretty sure it was. And it was a moment where in my head, and I think I verbally said it, I was just like, SnapTap. I was just like, that was my first instinct. It just looked he was running, but he was also so accurate when he did it. Like, I couldn't tell if it was even frame perfect or not, or if he was fully running. And that's what I didn't like.
Yeah, that sucks. You don't want to have that feeling.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, you want to feel like the player did something incredible. You don't want your brain to immediately tell you he wouldn't have hit that if he didn't have the keyboard.
Exactly. Yeah. And then the other side of it is, if he didn't hit the perfect counter strafe, right? Like, I want to be able to appreciate for just a random stroke of luck that happens too, because listen, when people get lucky in Counter-Strike, it still is pure entertainment. I just like to know the difference. And yeah, being able to like spot the difference, sometimes it became this little thing in the back of your head where somebody will hit a nice shot and you're just like, maybe, like, these guys could probably hit I see Nico hit shots like this all the time, but maybe he's using SnapTap now. Oh, I don't know. I kind of do hate, though, that also at the same time, like, it kind of felt like people were like, this list in a way, I don't know how to describe it. It just kind of feels shitty that, like,
feel witch hunty.
Yeah, a little bit. It just kind of feels a little gross. I get, because like, it's not the player's fault. Like, they got a competitive advantage. They're trying to take advantage of everything they can within the rules, right? So it just, I don't know. I'm just glad it's done.
I'll put it this way. I mean, again, you're right. It is done, so this doesn't really matter at the end of the day. But I'll put it this way. I think the list should be made of all the idiots who weren't using it, because it is obviously an advantage. Like, it is obviously, and it was legal at the time. Like,
Are they idiots? No, Vitality won.
yeah, that's fair. But like, you should be looking at it, and it's like, if this is allowed and it's going to give me an advantage, or at the very least prevent me from making a mistake or a disaster, right? Like, at the end of the day, it's a safety net too.
Yeah.
Then why not use it if it's fun? I think that was the big issue for me that was so confusing, was when TOs came out and said SnapTap was okay, but these null binds are still like not allowed to be used. And I was just like, aren't they the same thing? Weird. Isn't that exactly what the key, like, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Could have Valve, and I don't know, came up with a technical solution that removed the SnapTap and kept the jump throw binds? Was that an option?
I would be curious. I would be curious to actually talk to them about it one time, because one thing that I always find fun with chatting with them, as frustrating as it can be, one of the cool things is you get a sense for how many different perspectives they look at most of these problems with. Whereas, like, we kind of talk about it from a player and a game angle. I don't know about this particular jump on, but just in general with other issues in the past, they have like other viewpoints that they look at it from, development, from new players coming into it. So they usually have a logical reason for doing it. In my experience, I'm sure there was probably a way to take out SnapTap without taking out the jump throws, as you said, adding the button into the game itself. But I don't know. Honestly, like, I really, the jump throws don't bother me in any way. It is, at the end of the day, just a quality of life thing for pros, and I think they're going to get over it. And I think we're gonna really forget about this conversation pretty quickly.